Right. Hello, everyone, whoever you might be, whoever's watching this video. Welcome to the Malaysian Asian Parliamentary Stock Speaker Briefings. So this video is meant to be an introduction for debaters to the Asian Parliamentary format. So whether you're a newer debater seeking to learn the AP format, or whether you're a tournament organizer who just wants to play a video and have it done with, this is hopefully the video for that. And so, whatever your purpose may be, we hope you enjoy the video. And on behalf of the MAP CAP, I'm Eitan, and I'll be taking you through speaker briefings in the Asian parliamentary format. Cool. Before we get into too much, though, just disclaimer that this is meant to be brief. We have simplified it for it to be understandable to most debaters who maybe are learning about the Asian parliamentary format for the first time. And so if you're looking for more in-depth explanations, you can refer to the UADC manual, which is the, you know, big manual for Asian parliamentary, since it's the biggest Asian parliamentary format debate competition. So if you're like a serious debater who wants to find out like some niche thing, I don't know, you can go refer to the manual. It's on Google somewhere, I'm sure. But yeah, meant to be a brief thing. Brief. Okay. Anyways, let's just get straight into it. So as for what the format looks like, it is a 3v3 format. So you'll have government and opposition, government supporting the motion, opposition going against the motion, and you'll go in a usual order for the first six speakers. So you start with the Prime Minister, then you go to the Leader of Opposition, then the Deputy Prime Minister, then the Deputy Leader of Opposition, before going to the Government Whip and then the Opposition Whip, which is then where the order is reversed, and you then go to the Opposition reply, then the Government reply. Importantly, it is a 3v3 format, so there's only three speakers. You might be wondering, why is there four positions? Well, we'll explain later on, but in essence, the reply speaker is one of the first two speakers. But yeah, we'll go into that later. Cool. So what is each speaker meant to do? The first speakers for both teams are Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition, and their roles are relatively similar, where they're expected to define the debate, set up the parameters in which both teams should be debating on, right? So, for example, if it's about a motion about this house would land on the moon, right? You explain what does landing on the moon mean? How do you land on the moon? Or like, what is the burdens to prove whether or not landing on the moon is good? So that's like defining the debate. And then you'd also, as a first speaker, be expected to present a few arguments supporting the motion or opposing the motion. So you might, explain, landing on the moon is good because you develop science or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's generally the role of the first two speakers. For the leader of opposition, it's slightly different, where you're expected to establish the clash and explain your own context. So perhaps if you disagree with the setup or you think that there should be a different burden or a different metric for the debate to be debated on, you might want to establish that clash in your speech as well, just explaining perhaps why the prime minister set up the debate wrong or why there are different reasons for or different things that you might want to prove in the debate, and that's you would expect to do that in the leader of opposition so that you can establish the clashes that you want the debate to unravel into. Cool. The deputies then have a quite simple role. You're expected to rebut the other side's arguments and then develop your own case, whether it's through strengthening and rebuilding the first speaker's argument or providing your own arguments. The whips are then expected to rebut the other side's arguments. You also want to defend your team's arguments and summarize the debate. So this usually involves things like weighing, clashing, or doing comparatives, where you just compare both teams, explain why yours is more important, explain why theirs is wrong, for example. In the replies, then it is meant to be a biased adjudication for your side. So instead of adding any new material or new responses, you take what has already been said in the debate and then explain it in the lenses of the judge or in a biased lens towards the judge, how they should see the debate, how it actually played out, and why your side is winning. But we'll go more into that in a bit. Cool. Just a few general rules. The constructive speakers, so the first six speakers from Prime Minister to Opposition Whip, you can press the back button if you don't remember them. But they're expected to speak for 7 minutes. There is a grace period until 7:15, so they have an extra 15 seconds after that. So after the seventh minute, but anything after the 7 minute 15 mark will not be noted by the judge, and so will not be credited as part of the debate. The reply speakers would then speak for 4 minutes, and well, yeah, they just speak for 4 minutes. Cool. Same rules apply for grace period. You have until 4:15 before you should just end your speech there because nothing after that will be noted. You have 30 minutes of preparation time after the motion is released. So after the motion comes out, you will then have 30 minutes after that to prepare for the debate. And this is inclusive of the motion preference discussion and motion rankings that we'll go into in just a bit. The last thing in general rules is just points of information. So POIs can be asked between the first and sixth minute of a constructive speech. So these are questions that you ask to the speaker. Anytime before the first minute and after the sixth minute is known as protected time, and you won't be able to ask POIs then. As for the POIs themselves, they should only last for a maximum of 15 seconds, and you can only ask one every 15 seconds, just in order to make sure that the speakers actually have the appropriate time speaking and are not just interrupted or bombarded with constant, like, POIs that actually drowns out their speech. So we don't want to do that. And so POIs are only allowed once every 15 seconds. Cool. So a bit more on reply speeches. They are 4 minute speeches that are in the reverse order, and they're a biased adjudication, as we mentioned earlier. But importantly as well, these cannot be given by the whip. So the reply speaker should be either the first speaker, which is the prime minister or the leader of opposition, or the second speaker, which is the both of the deputies, right? And so it cannot be the whip who gives the reply speech. It has to be one of the first two speakers. In a reply speech, you are not allowed to give any new material or any new responses or anything new that is substantive to the case and brings into light, maybe a new argument or a new point of view that wasn't already existent. So the reply speech is meant to shape what has already happened in the debate into a way that proves that your side is winning rather than giving anything new. Also, you are not allowed to give any POIs during the reply speeches. So throughout all 4 minutes, no POIs. There's no protected time because it's all protected. Cool. Just a bit of extra stuff then. Firstly, on definitional challenges. And so these should only occur in the opening exchange, which means the leader of opposition must bring up a definitional challenge if they wish. But this cannot happen afterwards, right? So not in the deputy or in the whip. So this might look like, if we take this house would land on the moon motion, maybe government says, oh, landing on the moon is a philosophical concept and it's about humanity's progress or something along those lines. If this happens and, as opposition, you're not happy about this, there are two scenarios that you can take, or two options you can take. The first is to sort of like complain but debate anyway. So this means that you explain that their definition is uncharitable, but maybe if it's something that is still debatable, you still go along those lines. So maybe government isn't debating this house would land on the moon, but that this house believes landing on the moon is a good cause for human society or something like that, right? Maybe they got the whole definition wrong. What you might want to do as leader of opposition is just explain why that's wrong and then debate it anyways. So if it's somewhat debatable, you might explain that they're uncharitable before debating on that, and this is preferable because you're not going to end up in sort of a definitional battle throughout the debate, right? But in the last resort, where it's something that's unacceptable, like what I mentioned earlier on, like, the landing on the moon stuff, you might want to challenge the definition. And this is the last resort and can only be done in the leader of opposition, where you explain why the definition is wrong, give your own definition and explain why it's right. Maybe give a few reasons for why this is true, just basic logic. That's what the motion means or something along those lines. And that's how you would challenge the definition. But it should always be a last resort. So if the debate is somewhat debatable, you would always be expected, or you should do that just in order for you to not make the debate really messy, right? The second thing is that there cannot be any new material in whip. So anything that cannot be unreasonably derived from previous speakers is known as new material, which might look like new arguments or new framing per the UADC manual. But whips are allowed to give things like new responses, new weighing metrics, and new examples. So basically, an elaboration of the case, but not a new case line or a new case direction, because that would be considered new material and shouldn't be credited in the round. Right. Cool. So just going into motion rankings, this is a really important part of the Asian parliamentary format. In each round, you will receive a set of three motions, and you're expected to rank them from first to third. So the motion that you rank first is the one that you prefer, and the motion you rank third is the one that you veto, which means that it's banned and it won't be debated at all in the round. So there's a few options that might occur here. The first is where both teams veto different motions, and this is great because you would end up um, debating just a singular motion, right? Because two of the other motions have been vetoed, which means they won't be debated, and therefore you're only debating the middle motion. So in this example, the arrows motion. In the second scenario, both teams might veto the same motion but have the same preference. So if they both want to debate the same motions, so in this instance, they both want to debate arrows, then arrows will be debated, and there won't be any opposition because both teams want to do it. So that's pretty simple as well. The last one is a little more complicated. So this is in the scenario where both teams veto the same motion. So in this scenario, both teams vetoed the motion on guns, and they preferred different motions, right? Opposition preferred arrows, government preferred fists. And so in this scenario, you would do a coin flip, and the team who wins the coin flip gets to choose which motion they want to debate, or they will have their preference for the motion, right? So that's what happens if you have different preferences and the same veto. Hopefully, these examples are clear for motion rankings. Just a few more notes on motion rankings. Then teams can take up to 5 minutes before ranking the motions, and this 5 minutes are included in your 30 minutes of prep time, right? So after the motions are released, you have 30 minutes to prep, but within that 30 minutes, you also have 5 minutes to find the other team and rank the motions. This isn't any additional time. For the sake of fairness as well, both teams should reveal their motion rankings at the same time. So if it's an online tournament, you might want to put it in the chat at the same time, or if it's physical, you might want to both write it down and show it to each other. To avoid any misunderstanding, though, always make sure that you can verbally confirm the motion with the other team. So this is just like, preferable to just repeat the exact wording of the motion that you're debating before moving into preparation time. So if we pick the motion on this house would land on the moon, you might want to just like before they leave the room, so just be like, okay, just to clarify, we're debating the motion on this house would land on the moon. And in that way, we're able to avoid any, confusion or misunderstandings in people thinking that they're debating a different motion and preparing for a wrong motion. Well, in the worst case scenario as well, if a team is not present for motion rankings, then the team present in the room can assume their preferred motion as the one being debated. In these scenarios, you preferably notify a member of CAP or a judge or a runner that this is what has occurred, and then you would proceed with that. But always try and even before the motions are released, try and find your opponents and agree where you want to do the motion rankings. And if not, you can proceed with this in the like worst case scenario, right? As a last resort, you just proceed with your own motion if you're the only one in the room. Cool. Oh yeah, that's like within that 5 minutes, right? So if they don't turn up within that 5 minutes, then you would prepare your own motion that you preferred. Right. Cool. That should be it for this briefing. Hopefully it's helpful to you guys, whatever it is you use this briefing for. Um, and I hope you enjoyed. I guess thanks for watching and see you in the other briefings from the other members of CAP.